Would you rather have breakfast at the Eiffel Tower or dinner at the Taj Mahal? Would you rather jump into a pool of melted chocolate or a pool of strawberry ice cream? Would you rather everything in your house be one colour or every single wall and door be a different colour? Would you rather be a giant ant or a tiny giraffe? Oh, so many choices, albeit ones you'll probably never have to make. But all of us make so many choices every day, and these choices unfold to become our lives. Heraclitus, an ancient Greek philosopher from 500 years BC, says this: "The content of your character is your choice. Day by day, what you choose, what you think, and what you do is who you become." Now, with these challenging words in our minds, let's reflect for a few moments on the choices made by the two brothers in the story of the prodigal son found in Luke chapter 15. We see the younger brother choosing to ask his father for his inheritance now. He decides to move to a distant land and waste his money on wild living, leading him to seek work amongst the pigs, even eating their food. He then chooses to return home, hoping to be taken on as a hired servant. He declares, "Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son." Now the father's beautiful choice is to welcome his younger son home as his child. The older son, however, chooses anger in response and refuses to go in the feast, welcoming his brother home. Now, in this short story, we see two sons making choices driven by a craving for freedom, a sense of desperation, a feeling of guilt, and a stirring of anger. Emotions and experiences drove the choices of these young men, but they were always free to make different choices. There is no denying that our past experiences, our emotions, and our desires influence our choices, whether for good or for bad. I am sure that as you consider your own life, there will be choices you have made that you so wish you hadn't, but other choices that you are so glad you did. Now we leave the story of the prodigal son with the younger son, who initially made seemingly bad choices, enjoying a lavish feast with his father, whilst the older son, who initially made apparently good choices, is out in the field, seething with anger. It's one of those stories where you long to turn the page and see what happens next. But alas, we never find out that happily ever after. With the story as it is, we reflect and realise that the greatest choice either son made was when the younger son chose to come home. The father would have wept at his son's earlier choices, but rejoiced more than anything at his later choice. And today that choice lies before each and every one of us. Will we come home like the younger son? Whether we have left our father to seek pleasure or momentary happiness, or perhaps deeply hurt our family by our behaviour, the absolute best choice we can make is to come home. The best choice is to recognise that the greatest earthly riches and the loveliest earthly pleasures will leave us broken and poor in the end. But being home with God is the safest, securest, and most hopeful place to be. Being in the presence of God is what we were created for. Now, we sometimes refer to the story of the prodigal son as the story of the lost son, naturally assuming the lost son is the youngest son. But as I reflect, we leave the story with the lost son found, but actually another son now seems lost. The older brother naturally claims, "All these years I've slaved for you, and never once refused to do a single thing you told me to. And in all that time, you never gave me even one young goat for a feast with my friends. Yet when this son of yours comes back after squandering your money, you celebrate by killing the fattened calf." The older son found no joy in the return of his younger brother. All he saw was a perceived injustice. He would not celebrate the joy of his father and brother, for he was consumed with his own anger and unhappiness. I like to think that in the next paragraph of the story, we see this lost son choosing to come back home, feasting and partying, and recognising that the lost being found is the most beautiful thing to witness. In Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19, we see Moses speaking to the Israelites, saying, "I call heaven and earth to witness against you that today I have set before you life or death, blessing or curse. Oh, that you would choose life, that you and your children might live." In the struggles and reality of life on earth, the choice always lays before us to choose life through recognising the blessings of a relationship with God. Circumstances may conspire against us, our experiences may shape us, and our emotions influence us, but still the choice is in our hands. Will we choose life? Will we choose to come home? This week saw the inauguration of Joe Biden as the 46th President of the United States of America, following turbulent days in American politics. Viewers across the world were inspired and challenged by 22-year-old Amanda Gorman, the first ever National Youth Poet Laureate, as she performed her work, "The Hill We Climb." This call for unity and togetherness concluded with these words: "For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it." Some choices take more courage than others. To see the light and to be the light on the darkest days is one mightily courageous choice, but one open to all of us. Henry Nouwen, in his book Return of the Prodigal Son, says this: "People who have come to know the joy of God do not deny the darkness, but they choose not to live in it. They claim that the light that shines in the darkness can be trusted more than the darkness itself, and that a little bit of light can dispel a lot of darkness. They point each other to flashes of light here and there and remind each other that they reveal the hidden but real presence of God." The younger son could have chosen to stay in the darkness, to give up and spend the rest of his days feeding the pigs. Instead, he caught perhaps just a tiny glimmer of light and chose to risk the journey home, risking rejection, but finding love, finding life, and finding his Father. Will you courageously choose to walk away from the darkness and walk into the light? Will you choose to live a life that speaks of hope and of purpose? Will you choose to come home? whether that means personally returning to your Heavenly Father or joyously encouraging others to do the same. The Christian band Rend Collective sing these words: "Boldly I approach your throne. Blameless now I'm running home. By your blood I come, welcomed into your arms as your own." As you imagine the embrace of the Father and the prodigal son, may you give thanks to God that you will always be his child and you can always choose home. In the coming days, take heart from these words of Nelson Mandela. May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. God bless you.